I had had a premonition to go to the hospital to be checked, even though there wasn't anything going on. And it's another one of the points I love to leave an audience with is follow those premonitions, those instincts. When your gut tells you something, follow it. It's a way of the other side communicating with us. And by the time I got to the hospital, I said, I know I'm not in contractions, but I was within a couple of days of my due date. So they decided to check me out. And while they were doing so, I mean, basically, I was putting the gown on. I just started to bleed profusely. And they took one look at me, pushed me on a gurney, and it was a race to save my life, to save my baby's life. Um, so they did a C-section on me without any kind of anesthesia, an aspirin, a warm blanket, an operating room. It was very. They when the doctor came in said it was basically this woman has 2 minutes of life left based on the blood in the room. Basically, my innards were being taken out, my intestines, everything. They moved things to get to the baby. It was just too much, and I left my body. Just as I was leaving, and the pain was so bad, the ceiling of the room had popped off, and the walls had become fluid, and they just started kind of moving inward. And because I had read accounts of near death experiences, I thought, oh my goodness, this must be the tunnel is forming. The walls are coming in, and I was kind of seeping backwards. I mean, I was going blind, with the lack of blood and whatnot, but I could see that tunnel forming. So, um, and I relaxed into it because I thought, well, I'm going to see my dad in a matter of moments. I'll be seeing my dad. What happened though is I found myself in a place of complete blackness. It was it was everything and nothingness all at the same time. I've heard people call it the void, but it never sat well with me because a void to me feels like there's something missing, something not complete. And it was complete. It was everything. It was void of nothing. And so, I mean, it was so perfect that I could have stayed there forever in the blackness. And it was intelligent and it knew me. It knew me completely, and it held and cradled me in a place of just absolute perfection that when I could hear the hospital, the nurses calling me back, it was quite irritating and I didn't want to go. And they were telling me that my baby had lived and I had already seen a lifeless baby. And so I thought, they're lying to me and I'm in perfection. I'm going to stay here. But as I tried to form back into a humanness, because I was still me, although, and I want to say, I was going to say I had no body. I don't know because it was so black. I couldn't have seen a hand in front of my face, but I didn't feel connected to a body, but I felt the entirety of me, of Claudia, all intact within this space. And so I didn't miss not having a body, basically. And but I was trying to, in a human way, because I had not heard anything or spoken or heard even telepathy. It was all just feeling that when I heard these earth words coming in, and I go to my right ear because that's where I felt, and where I seem to receive a lot of the heaven-like, beautiful heaven stuff on my left side. And this is just me personally, because I know we're all so different. But I felt like earth was coming in over here, and I was moving. It's like, no, don't bother me here. And but when I tried to form the words to tell them, no, leave me alone. I it was basically just jumped right back into my body. So that's how I died. When I popped out of my body, I was aware that it was my body kind of below me. I was back from my head basically, and looking down at my body because I was kind of going in this tunnel. But and as you ask that, it makes me, it's like, now how did this happen? Because I don't know if I pushed out that pop. Okay, and let me describe the pop too. The pop, like death is, we can't pick how we're going to die. No, dying is not fun, it can be quite painful. Mine was really painful. But the death part is so easy. It's so familiar. It was a soft pop, like just a difference in the air, just a puff of air. And I was, that was it. It was done. It wasn't scary. It wasn't unusual. I wasn't afraid of it. And it seemed like I had done it many times before because I didn't even question. And I started to float around. I could go through walls, and that didn't seem weird. It seemed perfectly natural. Because I was bleeding out, just a little step backwards, I thought, if I'm calm through all this pain, if I just remain calm and keep my heart from just pump, and bleed, I thought, well, with each pump, I'm going to bleed more. So if I just lay here really, really calm and I try to calm my heart, and I heard some music in the background, as I said earlier, I was going blind, but my hearing was it was amazing. I could hear things all through the hospital, different floors and, different conversations, whatever I kind of put my mind to, listening more to the other. And I heard this music, and my attention turned to the music, and it was the theme for MASH was the music. And
That's a
I
great theme song.
is that great or what?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I just decided to focus on that. And so when I popped out of my body, I just floated through some walls and decided to go find it. So I did have a bit of adventure before I went into the complete darkness. And I found myself in the room where the TV was playing this music, and there was a gentleman laying there, and he had no idea I was there. When I realized that, I kind of got in front of him and did a couple of these, and he had no idea I was there. And then I went, I must be dead. I must be dead. That's how um, that it wasn't unusual. I'm grasping for a word here, but just how easy it was that I didn't even realize I was dead at that point. But as soon as I realized that, that's when I found myself in I'll call it the vastness. That fits better to me, vast. I didn't hover over my body and go, oh my goodness, I've been exercising so much, and here I looked pretty good going in, or whatever. It was my work overalls. It was my suit for this adventure, and I had taken off the suit, and now I was free.
My first NDE was before I was 7 years old. I maybe like around 5 or something. I don't even know because I was so young. And I can't talk about the circumstances because it's not a closed case and there are other people involved. And there are some people that are still trying to heal from it. So that's all I can say. But what I can do is talk about the other side, and that I went from just chaos and just absolute terror through this tunnel. It was like being on a roller coaster, which I didn't know then because I was too young to have been on a roller coaster, but in retrospect, it works. And then I went into this light and I was disoriented, and then all I felt was love. this incredibly deep spiritual love that's beyond the word magnificence. There was just really no word for it. The only word is Yugen, Yugen, which is a Japanese word, and it is the magnificence of the world being so breathtaking that there are no words. And it's kind of like that, but it is so profound. It's kind of love I have never felt from a person, a dog, a cat, anything, um, except for the other side. And I realized what it is. We're not in our physical bodies. We 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 become what we are, which is energy, and that energy is the frequency of love. And that's what every single person is. And what happens when we get in our physical bodies, we can't grasp what it is outside of the physical. And our mind can't comprehend. I've been meditating for years, and I have these amazing meditations and this wisdom and all this joy and love and peace. And when I come back to my body over a period of time, it diminishes. And I realize it's because my mind, my body can't comprehend the vastness, magnitude of what we really are. It's mind-boggling to come back and not understand what happened to you in the first place, that all of a sudden you so abruptly go to the other side. And it was like, I didn't see anyone. I saw this amazing, amazing light. It was like different shades of white and pale blues and yellows, and it just, everything vibrated. And I looked at myself and I thought, I'm vibrating. We all like resonate, and we all have a sound that we resonate with, and everybody's different. It's like you and I, if we went over there now, we'd be different colors and we'd be different sounds, because that's the way it is. And we carry with us the lives that we have lived. I had trouble with this. I was raised as a Christian, and from my 2 NDEs, reincarnation is real. We don't die, we transition. And we focus on what we want to have understanding of. And so we have this Akashic records. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that word right, but that is the sum total of everything we've lived through. And when we're on the other side, that is in a frequency, from my experience, it's like we become these threads of vibrating energy. One of those threads that we carry is what we have lived through, what we have come through. What happened was, I was in the midst of this, and the fear that I had before I left my body was gone. I was just in awe and just, oh my God, just captivated by this love and this feeling so safe when I had come from such a situation of being so unsafe. I spoke telepathically, and what came to me as sound came to me as telepathic, because I didn't see anyone. It was all this energy. And I was given a choice then if I wanted to return. And I at first thought that it was the other way around, that this happened my second time, but my dog was alive when I went over the first time, but in spirit the second time. So that's how I, got the sequence together. And they said, you can stay here if you want, because didn't know how miserable I was, but life was terribly scary and terribly frightening. And I thought that this was what life was, but evidently it isn't. And I found out later that it's not. But I was told, if you want to stay, you can. If you go back, it's not going to be an easy life. You're going to go through kinds of things that you've already gone through. And I didn't really understand all that was said to me, but there was a moment where I had that attachment to my life on earth. I said, I miss my dog, I miss my mommy, and like that, like a shot, like bam, I was back in my body and so disoriented. And what came back to me, I don't know if I had this before, was my telepathic ability. It wasn't as sharp as it was on the other side, but I could see spirit and I could hear them. And I had moments where my dog and I could talk to each other. And I know every little kid feels that they can talk to their cat, their dog, their horse, their fish, whatever, because we can. There's an openness to us because we haven't lived with all these restrictions that we learned later. I was back and very disoriented, but I knew. I came back knowing that we weren't what we were in our bodies. And I didn't understand it. And I happened to tell two kids that I hung out with, friends, that I went to see God and I see dead people now. And I lost my friends. And my family was horrified at what I was saying. They were like, this is crazy. Stop. This is just crazy. So I lived feeling like I was crazy, except that when I was 7, I was on the Ouija board with my mother. And all of a sudden, she goes, what just happened? And I'm like, well, it got really dark and something came in and you could feel, and the lights went low, the lights kind of flickered and went low. And she said, we're going to put this away and we're never going to use it again. And you could feel this black, heavy mass start to retreat. Well, I didn't know my mother saw energy and felt it, but that was the beginning. When she knew that I did, that was the beginning of my training with her on how to track energy and environmental energy, and really like the strong energy that you feel like when you walk into a house and you're not comfortable, or you walk into a house and you feel this love there. That's imprinting. And that happens in environments. It happens on streets. It happens everywhere. If there's a real strong emotion. And at 7, I was feeling those things, which made it even more confusing, because what I started to learn was people aren't always honest. I would feel something and then I would hear something else. And life was very confusing. And of course, school was up for grabs for me. There were days where I remember all of a sudden I heard the teacher calling my name. And then people were like making fun of me because I wasn't paying attention. But what happened to me, I would never give up for a second, because what happened was something triggered. I don't know if something got close to me or I don't know what, but all of a sudden I was in the light.
I was training for the Portland Marathon that year, and this was pre-COVID. And I was on a training run and with my wife, and wasn't feeling well. And long story short, I was having a Widowmaker heart attack at the time and didn't know it. And this event should have been pretty catastrophic in a short period of time, but somehow my life was spared long enough for me to get to the hospital. And when I got there, of course, the place is full. This is right at the beginning of COVID. This is February 11th of 2020. So the place is full, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to stay here. There's a lot of people here. Well, long story short, by the grace of God, somebody grabbed me in the waiting room as I was trying to leave and said, "Hey, you don't look okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's something wrong. I'm not sure." And they go, "Well, sit down here for a second. Let us check it out." Within seconds, they had me in the emergency room, and they were cutting my running clothes off. And I was like, "What's going on?" They're going, "Sir, you're having a heart attack." And at that point, I remember going into the emergency room, kinda. I remember them cutting off my running clothes because I just got them, and they were, they were, yeah, some of my favorites. But, and then, I didn't have like the hovering over my own body experience, but I did experience, the cliche, the light, so much warmth, and, just love, and a feeling like I've never felt before, and I couldn't explain it if I had to. But what really makes my situation unique is, so my mother passed away 3 years on that same day, 3 years prior, from brain cancer. And I saw my mom as plain as day, as young and beautiful and full of life, and had told me that it wasn't my time. And I'm told that, my cardiac arrest lasted a minute and a half. I do kind of remember the paddles, just how that felt. But, it's that the time on the other side was like timeless. It was like, it seemed like an eternity, but it didn't seem like an eternity. And it was just, yeah, it's hard to explain. But the last thing I remember was literally the next day waking up in the ICU, and just literally being in awe for probably 5 minutes that, one, I was still alive, and two, I couldn't even comprehend what had just happened to me. And it took me, I don't know, probably a good 2 weeks to fully even, I guess, come down from the experience. Not only was, I was still in pretty bad shape, but just the whole mental aspect of that was, super emotional. It was emotional. I'd never really had a great relationship with my mother for various reasons. And, I did get to say goodbye to her when she passed away from brain cancer, but, we weren't super close. And the fact that, I had an interaction with her on the other side, to me, it could have been anyone, right? It could have been anyone. And the coincidence of the timing and just how that all happened is, and yeah, I have some regrets about that, because I wish I would have had a better relationship with my mom. But at the same time, seeing her like that was the best thing. Well, I'm no longer scared to die, for sure. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's more love than I've felt ever. And I have kids and have a great relationship and have lots of love and great friendships around me, but that is different. It is like just beyond words different. And I hate to sound, I keep saying the same thing over and over, but it is different. We're in each other's presence for what seemed like an eternity, but I couldn't even tell you what the time was like. It seemed like forever, but not. And, I in my medical report, it says that, I was basically clinically dead for about a minute and a half. But I mean, I don't know, it seemed like hours to me.